Somebody's always texting me.
Can't get away from those.
Nope. That's what you heard the ding was. Like I said, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Ear to the Ground 197. I'm your host, Bryan Foley, and campaign season is upon us, and we're going to be hosting a plethora of different candidates in various areas of responsibility, governmental responsibility. If you say, well, we've already had city council persons on, we've had attorney generals, we have had county commissioners, we have people running for mayor, we have everything. And we have in today, right, we have attorney Carl Barr, who is vying for the judgeship of the Washtenaw County District Court A2, which is downtown Ypsilanti. So we want y'all to welcome attorney Carl Barr this morning. And what we'd like everybody to do is that we would like for you to share this video. We would like for you to type Y1. Do you know why we ask people to type Y1?
No.
Because I believe in Ypsilanti first. So we ask everybody to share, hit like, and type Y1. I see you out there this morning, Tracy Davis and Gail Summerhill. I got some information for y'all, but we want to welcome this morning on Ear to the Ground attorney Carl Barr. Carl, how you doing this morning? Let's see if we can hear you on the microphone, see if the people can hear y'all. Let me know if you can hear Carl this morning. So how you doing this morning, Carl?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for asking. Happy and humbled to be here.
Okay, all right. So let me get everything set up right here. Carl Barr, I think maybe this is the first time you and I have talked. I can't recall. Your dad is John Barr.
Yes.
Okay, so I know Mr. Barr. It's attorney Barr, Tracy, B-A-R-R. You got Barry in the comments there. We don't want to get there. I know Mr. Barr, long time city of Ypsilanti, counsel to the city of Ypsilanti, the city's attorney representative. Is that the best way to call it? Yes. So I know Mr. Barr, and I think I've seen you in city council a time or two, maybe speaking on his behalf or in support of him and stuff like that. And that's how we kind of know each other. But, I brought your father's name up is because fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of people like to know, attaches to who our family is. And sometimes they align us to our families and think that we do the same things that our fathers did, or because we follow the path. My father is a retired city of Ypsilanti police officer, but he's also an electrician. I'm an electrician also too, but we're not the same people. And I'm pretty sure that you and Mr. Barr are not the same people, what have you. But we were talking earlier in the studio, and Carl was telling me that you're YH Ypsilanti Community Schools or Ypsilanti High School graduate, class of 1989. And you went to school with my youngest brother, Matthew Foley. He graduated in that same class and stuff like that. So you are a native Ypsilantian?
Yes.
All right, then that you my man's right there. We rolling right there. You got a gold star for that, my man. Anyway, Carl Barr, tell us who you are, before we get into it. Tell us people a little bit about yourself, if you will.
Sure, thank you. I was born in Ypsilanti, went to Perry for preschool, then Fletcher West at Ypsilanti High School. Went to college at Northern Michigan University up in Marquette, graduated in '96, and it's now called Michigan State Law School. It was Detroit College of Law School for many years, but I was one of the first classes that graduated out of Michigan State. Worked in the tax department of Plant Moran, an accounting firm, for a short while, and then came to work for my father in late 2001. And I've been doing municipal work as well as other client work since that time. Okay. I can tell you a bit about my judicial philosophy, if you like, or whatever. So, as I think you mentioned, I'm running for 14A2 district court judge. I like to go on record to say that I believe in that no one's above the law, that everyone is treated equally under the law, and everybody's accountable under the same laws. There are clear and fair processes for enforcing the laws, and that we have an independent judiciary, and that human rights are guaranteed for all. Personally, the thing that I would like to do that I think that could be the most help to the 14A court and the court in a broader sense is to strengthen the trust and confidence between the community and the court. And I have a couple ways that I like to do that. And I can also talk about the past. And I think one thing for this race in particular would be, well, what have you done for the community in the past?
Okay, now you right down my alley right there, because those are the questions I'm asking right there. So let's back up just a little bit, and let's take that last question that you had first, right? Because you and I were talking earlier, and we noticed that there's nothing in the media about this particular race. At least I haven't heard of it. I was just looking over at who had filed their petitions for the specific governmental bodies that were up for election this season. And of course, we don't have a newspaper record anymore. I don't care what you call it, Ann Arbor News or whatever, MLive, whatever. That is not City of Ypsilanti newspaper of record. So we really don't know what the hell be going on a lot of times if we rate on the media. Okay. So what have you done for the community in the past? What qualifies you to even say, hey, I want to be a judge? You get what I mean? So let's start right there. What have you done? What has Carl done in the past in the community?
Well, the minimum qualifications through the state are that you're an attorney of record, or a licensed attorney through the state, which I am, and that you've been one for 5 years. So I've clearly been that. Okay. But I believe that work that I've done primarily for the citizens and the city of Ypsilanti are what give me the best strength and qualifications to, sit before the community and pass judgment on what has, each particular case. I've been assistant city attorney since 2002 for the city of Ypsilanti. We also used to represent Belleville, been a city prosecutor for both of those communities. We represent the Saline and Milan Area Fire Authority, as well as a few other municipalities that we prosecute for. Most of my criminal work has been in the first 10 years of my career and my trial work there. I've drafted ordinances for the city of Ypsilanti. I've defended ordinances for the city of Ypsilanti, prosecuted the ordinances. I think one of the strengths of what I've been exposed to and believe in very much is the community policing philosophy, of which we have used it in our department and in conjunction with the police department and courts to alleviate a lot of problems that the community has brought forth. It's not that someone in a position of power saying this is what should happen. It's listening to the needs of the community. Probably the best effort that I can think of there was the Gateway Committee, which is a while back.
That's been a while back, yeah. I haven't heard that term in a long time.
Right.
Okay.
And so when I came to work here, the committee had been formed and it was operating. And I believe it was Esther Williams that I think was one of the main persons that formed that committee.
Yeah, Esther was on there. The late Vicky Allen James was on there. Sharon Newton. Lois Richardson on there, and there's a name I'm missing. Mary Louise Foley was on there, my cousin. Yeah, so they was on there. It was consisted of a lot of women doing a lot of progressive and positive things. But yeah, and
we'd meet at the Hope Clinic. And I know
the old Hope Clinic.
Yeah,
right.
And representatives of the police department, the public defender's department, Lloyd Powell was there. And the community had expressed concern about the safety on Harriet Street.
Right.
And a couple of great things came out of that particular community. And one was where then Chief Harshberger, or actually it was maybe before he was chief. I think it was, and myself worked with Judge Tabby and did what was called a conditional bond request program. And it took a lot of groundwork. So the EMU did a study of where police calls were in particular types of police calls, specifically drugs, alcohol, gambling, and prostitution. And a high concentration of those calls were along Harriet Street. Okay. So, and this was also in conjunction with the public defender, and I'm not sure if NAACP and the ACLU were at those meetings, but they were certainly invited. And so all stakeholders from all sides were there, and everyone agreed that this would be a positive thing to help that street. And what the program was is that if you got arrested on that street for any of those listed crimes as part of your bond, unless you lived in that community, you couldn't go back there and hang out.
Okay.
And that was the goal, was to try and prevent those problems. But the best part, in my opinion, of what happened was that because of the publicity that was put out, and this is primarily Matt Harshberger, I think prior to him being chief, held community meetings. So everybody knew what was going to happen and when it was going to happen. And months after that program was laid out and in effect, there may have been one person that had been arrested because everybody knew, and the problem cleaned itself up, as opposed to, lots of arrests.
Wow. Conditional bond. Yeah. That sounds very interesting, and it sounded very progressive in what would be needing. So was that predicated upon because people kind of understood the culture and the environment of what was going on down there, and understanding that people were just responding to the social environment and conditions that they're in, that they weren't necessarily bad people per se. They were just doing bad things, and with an opportunity, they could better themselves. So that was kind of progressive. And this was where back in this was in 95, 97, in fact, when you start mentioning Harshberger's name, is that correct?
So my involvement would have started in early 2002 when I came to work for my father's office. Okay. And that I'm guessing that program, the conditional bond, was probably maybe somewhere between 2003, 4, or 5 in that neighborhood.
Okay. What happened to the program?
I assume that it's no longer needed. There were a couple other properties there that were creating problems.
Yes.
That through there was one store that I believe there's some prostitution occurring from, and what my predecessor that did the nuisance abatement action, I think Jack Gilbreth, we filed on behalf of the city a nuisance abatement action to close that down. And then later on, at some point, I filed to close the Harriet Street Food Mart. And with that bond program and with those properties that were creating problems for the community, I believe that I'm not sure if the conditional bond's in effect anymore because it may not be needed. But because the community wanted that cleared up, I think that's the most important thing, is that we're giving the community what they want.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing is, as my theme song says, all power to the people, right? And the people should be the ones who the government and the decision makers should be following their recommendations, suggestions, what's better for them, as opposed to what we've been noticing lately is that we elect people into positions and then they come back and tell us what they demand of us and what we expect of us. And instead of being the voice of the people, they become the voice to the people and function as dictators. So that's that. So is the law firm Barr and Hutt?
It's Barr and Hutt.
Barr and Hutt. Okay, I'm and associates, right?
So my dad's former partner is William and Hutt, who just passed recently. But he's retired in I think the late 90s, about the time I was in law school.
Okay.
So when I went back to when I started working there, it was Barr and Hutt and Associates, and then it was Barr and Hutt and Gilbreth for a while. And then when Jack left, we went back to Barr and Hutt and Associates. So depending on people's frame of reference or who they know better, they may think the Barr is my father, or they may think it's me.
Okay, right. Okay, all right. Just so my people, the viewers can know who we're talking to. So help me to understand, right? So you're running for district court. What's the difference between district court and circuit court?
Great question. So the district court is an original jurisdiction court, and it handles financial matters up to $25,000, includes a small claims division of that court. It holds criminal matters up to a misdemeanor, felony bindovers, and landlord tenant. Whereas the circuit court are financial matters over $25,000, and felony criminal cases are handled there. So the district court is the court that is closest to the people. It's the court that people are most likely to find themselves in for the first time, when, and it's probably typically, when they're learning how to drive and
Okay.
youthful, they may get a traffic ticket or parking ticket, and the district court is where they go to have that matter adjudicated.
Okay, so it deals with a district and then a circuit. With, how could you best define that term circuit to relate to the court? Is that the overall governing body of the district court, or is it just circuit? You know what I mean? The encompassing of those courts.
The circuit court, it covers the entire county.
Okay.
And traditionally it is not in charge of the district court, but currently Carol Kunke, who is the chief judge of the circuit court, is also chief judge at the district court. But it has not always in the past. One of the district court judges has been chief judge of the district court, and it may be that way at some point in the future. The 14A district court is most all of Washtenaw County except the city of Ann Arbor, because that has the 15th district court. And then since
they got their special, they get their own court.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, when the district courts were created in I believe it was 1968, there were 4 judges for the 14A district court, and then 3 judges for the 15th district court. When 14B was created in 1982 through a legislative change, then that's all of Ypsi Township. There was a new judge there, and then when one retired from 14A, it went down to 3 judges.
Okay, so do we have a 14? Do we have a 14A1?
14A1 is at Hogback.
That's Hogback. Yep. Okay, and then A2 is
Ypsilanti.
And down to Ypsilanti, and that's why I always go with that A1. Then I know we have 14B.
14B at Ypsilanti Township.
Ypsilanti Township. My great friend, Judge Elaine Washington out there. And I think 14C is out in Saline area.
14-4, I believe, is
14-4,
Saline, and 14-6 is Chelsea.
Okay, all right. So being from Ypsilanti, and then vying for the judgeship in an area where you were born and raised, do you still live in the Ypsilanti area per se, or you know what I mean?
I live in Scioto Township right now.
Okay, all right.
So my partner was living there since 2007, and we purchased the house together in 2015, and so that's where my kids have been going to school. So I've been driving into Ypsilanti every day though, but I do live in Scioto now.
Okay, I mean, I don't know. Let me say, I don't know if that's a positive or a negative to become a judge in a community that is home, if you will. And I say that is because it's a positive. You get to know the people that may come before you, right? And there's 2 sides to look at that. You can look at the favoritism side, or you could be looking at, this is the kid that stole your lunch back in junior high school. Now you probably got a chance to get his ass. You get what I'm saying? So how would you traverse those venues or those avenues, those barriers, those obstacles, when you have to make decisions based upon somebody that you know a lot about, maybe know the history?
Well, that's a great question, and it also is a very similar question, I think, that involves politics and whether judges, what their politics are. The ballot is a nonpartisan ballot,
right?
So
I mentioned, you mentioned politics. I was going to ask you. Okay, all right.
However, judges are not supposed to engage in politics. There are rules that govern judges called the judicial canons. Judges are not supposed to engage in politics, nor are judicial candidates supposed to engage in politics or comment on political issues, because it might make people that come before the court question, is this being decided because the person before me, because I knew him in high school, and maybe we didn't like each other or not, or because they're Republican or Democrat, but that's not what the court is supposed to be. And part of what I've mentioned, the trust and confidence between the community and the court, is that the community should have faith and trust that the person before them is making their decision just based on the law and the facts of that situation, and is not using some inherent bias that they may have, to to decide on that case.
Yeah. And when you say inherent bias, let's dig into that a little bit, right? Unfortunately, we have this ugly thing called racism. You get what I mean? And oftentimes sometimes people are maybe biased racially inherently, but unconscious because of the way they were raised, their environments, their surrounding, and or culture, right? So we know that that's not supposed to come into play, but oftentimes, because of stereotypes and what's portrayed on certain ethnicity and cultures, that sometimes we have seen it play out on, on the news and the media, that a lot of times that decisions are made based upon that stereotype of that individual and is not involved with that. So, and you said the judge is supposed to rule according to law. Unfortunately, society hasn't been very fair and just to persons not racially classified as white. And so you got suspect before you A, who may be white, and suspect before you B, who may be black or another ethnicity, and they committed the similar crimes. How would you, to judge that, knowing this person's social economic background, and he's simply acting out in his environment based upon the situations and social things that are going on in his life, and he's sentenced to, they're facing the same amount of time, but there's some, let me see if I'm using his word, mitigating and litigating circumstances. Are you forced as a judge to judge them on an equal basis at the same way, or do you take those things into effect? I know I'm kind of chopping around. I've been watching Perry Mason and Law and Order, trying to brush up before you got up here so I can get my legalese together.
Sure.
All right.
Well, the court shouldn't treat someone differently because of their color.
Okay.
And so
that's what the rule book says.
Right. Okay. I don't think, and when we talk with regards to sentencing on a criminal matter, misdemeanors before the court are far smaller than what would be up in circuit court with felonies and murders and much more severe crimes. The thing that I think I could best do, from the bench, because if there is a rule of law, and that people should be judged by what their actions are, and how that relates to the law, not but their color or preference, in either direction. So by way of a sentence, I don't think there should be sentencing differences based on color, but certainly there are cultural differences by the way people that have been raised and where they grew up and how things are, and there are education opportunities that could happen through like the probation department, that could help a particular issue, and whether it's maybe a cultural thing, or it's a substance abuse issue,
right.
or there are a lot of new courts now which I'm in support of and would like to expand as much as possible in the 14A court, like for instance the drug court, the drug court, veterans court. Ellie Savitt's got a court going in the 15th district court, or a pre-charge diversion program that I would like to expand into the 14A district court. So there are a lot of things out there, but when it really comes to deciding the difference between, a particular act between two different, or whether it's two cases, one white, one black, maybe we have Latino, the color of the person in front of me won't affect the decision.
Yeah, great. Because we know at the federal level, and I was saying that when you had I believe it was the 100-to-1 with the cocaine versus the crack cocaine, and because it was a cultural thing that it was believed that blacks dealt more with crack cocaine, and the whites dealt more with powder cocaine. And then when it came to almost the same amount of weight, blacks were sentenced inappropriately higher than that based upon that. And that's what I was getting on on the cultural thing. It's not ironic that you mentioned Ellie Savitt. And I got a question out there. Eric Brown has a question, and we're going to get to that too. Ellie Savitt and Victoria Burton Harris. I'm very aware of them, and we communicate on a regular basis. And I really like that he is doing restorative justice, right? And to hear you saying you want to incorporate and move that over farther into the court system, into the judge system, that's very positive, you know, and on that. So I really would like to see that personally. So a question that one of the viewers asked out there is Eric Brown, and I'm gonna try to paraphrase it again. I think he says, can you expound on the unfair sentencing of Black and brown people, you know, across this nation? And we see it on the media more than anywhere else, but I can personally testify that Blacks, browns, I just like to use the general term, persons not classified as white have been sentenced much more harshly and unfair underneath the court system here in America. You have any opinion on that, or you know, anything like that?
I'm very well aware of the difference between incarcerated, you know, the Black and the white. I don't have an opinion. I would love to learn more about that. I have not been doing much criminal in the past few years. I've been doing more civil work, but that's an area that I would really like to learn more and adopt. As background, as kind of here what brings me today. I've really only been in this race for
15 minutes, right?
When Judge Tabby reached out and said he wasn't going to run, and so I've been working on what would I, you know, this was not on my radar anyway before that, and so I have been trying to learn as much as I can about what would be the best in the things to adopt in the court, and that very topic I would love to talk or learn more about so that I can figure out what the best ways to adopt that for the 14A district court. I would absolutely love to know how we could, how the community can teach me, you know, to be better on that area.
Yeah. And you presented this, you said Judge Tabby reached out to you, you know what I'm saying? So you brought that out. I don't, you know, Judge Tabby obviously must see something in you that he feels as though that you have those qualities to be a fair and impartial judge. And that's pretty good when you have somebody sitting on the bench and is reaching out to you. And Judge Tabby is leaving now. Is he retiring, or you know what I'm saying, just retiring? You know, I've you mentioned his name. I read some things in the past about Judge Tabby, and I'm not here to put him on trial or anything like that. You know, it's just what I read, you know, what the newspaper account said. So when you said Judge Tabby reached out to you, that kind of makes you a certain tie, you know. So how do you respond or address people who say that you're just Judge Tabby's replacement, if you will? You get what I'm saying? How would you address that, you know?
Well, that's what I'm running the office to become, and ultimately the people will decide that question. I'm not sure. I guess it's hard for me to understand the context of the question, because that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You know, we were talking about, you know, following when somebody who was already in office, right, or in a job whatsoever, and I'm naming my successor. Right, you get what I'm saying? And so when we look at the successor and we look at their past records and past practice and the way they handle things, and since Judge Tabby is vouching for you and asking for you, would you still conduct from the bench the same way that Tabby would do, or what would you do different than what Judge Tabby would do? Guess what I'm saying?
Great question. I think Judge Tabby has a great judicial demeanor. And from all the times that I've been before him, and I've probably been before him and probably been in 14A2 more than any other candidates that have filed, I do think he does a great job. I think he listens, which I think is very important, to what people are saying and what their concerns are, and that's frankly part of constitutional due process, to note an opportunity to be heard. So I do think he is a good jurist from the bench. I think I would, replicate a lot of what I see, from the bench, from what I have been before him. But I can't comment on how much he has embraced or not embraced some of the new concepts that I'm speaking of, that I have been learning more of recently, when this kind of was brought to me about a month ago now. I haven't talked to him personally, other than that phone call, which I think was St. Patrick's Day, and so I don't know a lot of his personal thoughts or feelings on these topics. These are my ideas that I've been putting together, and based on what I believe is best for this community.
Yeah, thank you. Me, on a personal level, I have nothing, no issues with Judge Tabby. Nothing but good things to say from a personal perspective. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying, because I started off the show talking about how your father is John Barr, my father is Jesse Foley, and people tend to say, when you see one, you see the other. And so when you said Judge Tabby, see one, you see the other. So that's why I wanted to give you the opportunity to let people see who Carl Barr is, standing alone, instead of somebody who's been, asking him to succeed. So that you get what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. The difference is there.
Yeah. I think those are great questions that the people want to know, is how when they make their decision in August and November, who they want to be on that bench for the community. And I believe I still, even though my house is in Scioto Township, I still feel like this is my community. So who do we want for our community on that bench?
Yeah, that's great. Ear to the Ground 197. We have attorney Carl Barr in the studio today, and he is running for District Court Judge of Washtenaw County A2 Court. There's a lot of viewers out there, a lot of listeners, whatever. If you're running for an office or what have you, or if you're running against Carl Barr, contact me, Ear to the Ground 197, and let's talk and see if we can get you on a program so we can hear who you are and what your ideals and what have you is and stuff like that. So with that being said, is there a candidate out there that's running against you that you heard about?
There are 3 others that have filed their petitions with the state. There's Stuart Collis, Fawn Armstrong, and Torshio Feaster.
Okay. Haven't heard of any of those people.
And that's the response I get from most people from our community.
Yeah, right. At the beginning of my show, and we ask everybody, if you haven't done it, to do it now. We ask everybody to like this, the video, share the video, and type in the comment, why one? Why do I ask people to type why one? Because I believe in Ypsilanti first. And because you are from Ypsilanti, I believe in community. I believe in that the people of the community know the community best. I know that the people, because they have experiences in the community and they're able to navigate the community. Just recently, we were talking to a particular candidate, and we're asked a question, how are you going to handle the Galt Village area, the shopping center that's vacant? And the person said, where is Galt Village? That's scary to me when you want to represent the community, but you don't even know the community. So that's you don't even know the problems of the community. You get what I'm saying? So you just named 3 people who are vying to be a judge around here, and I pride myself of being politically engaged and knowing who's who, is particularly at the level of local government, and knowing most of the people on the county level and quite a few on the state. But to hear people running for office in here, I've never even heard these names, quote unquote, in the streets. You get what I mean? Let alone talking about all of a sudden now you want to run for judge in this area. So I'd say that if you welcome to reach out to me, and we listen to the good, bad, and the ugly on Ear to the Ground 1 and 7, you know, but we just here to the share information out and what have you, you know. So what's going on around town or anything like that? What's happening legislatively? Any great changes that are taking place that in the law, whether it be on the district, on the county, the state, or the federal level, that we should be aware of?
Nothing's jumping into my consciousness on that front right now. If you wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind mentioning some of the things that I have done previously, and reflecting back at that on those things, of how I think that they demonstrate how the work that I have done ties into a lot of present issues today. For instance, I'm sure you've heard of discussions of the court system, you know, that the money that goes into the court, you know, where that goes, because a lot of it goes up to the state of Michigan.
Right.
And about 10 years ago now, I formed an administrative hearings bureau for the city of Ypsilanti. And so all of that money stays in the city. It doesn't go up to the court anymore. And in doing that, it decriminalized a lot of those matters. Okay. So I didn't really realize some of these things that I was doing back in the day when I was doing them, that how they fit into so many social justice issues today. Right. I've worked on a matter. I'm sure you're aware of First Street.
Yes.
And a lot
First Street or First Avenue.
One off Michigan Ave, I guess.
That's First Avenue.
Okay.
First Street is off of Huron River Drive. A lot of people don't know that, but you have a First Avenue and a First Street.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get one X.
So are you familiar with the title problems down there?
No, I'm not.
So that street is not a right angle to Michigan Ave. And this is something I worked on somewhere between 50 and 20 years ago. But to try and do some work to unredline that particular neighborhood, because every house is built across the property lines. And because it's built across the property lines, it can't get a clear survey. Without a clear survey, you can't get a mortgage. Without being able to get a mortgage, you can't sell it on the open market, which keeps the value down. And so ultimately we weren't successful, but we did the research to try and figure out how do we fix that. And it have to get a survey of all the houses, redraw the property descriptions, but the city can't do that to benefit specific property owners from the city money. It would have to be a special assessment. So ultimately that problem didn't get fixed back at that time, but we put work into trying to offer the solution of how, the city could help and do that. To my knowledge, it still hasn't been fixed, and that keeps the property values down. I've also worked clearing title to houses and probating property to houses, and teaching clients, most of them local, how to save money to keep the house in the family. You could do a deed to have property transfer when somebody passes, and the cost is about $350. But if you wait until somebody passes and then need to go through probate, move that decimal to the right, at least as a starting point, it's going to be about $3,500. So keeping those properties so that that the title passes from one generation to the next is very important to keep them marketable. And if it's not in the person who lives their names, they're going to be paying more taxes on it. If it's not in their name, they can't apply for a hardship reduction on the taxes based on income, which can help. I had a client for many years while he was alive that we helped do the hardship reduction for tax to keep the taxes down on a house that he inherited from his parents, so that he could afford to eat as well as continue to pay the taxes. And would mention for the viewers the Home for Generations program that Catherine McCleary and Julia Outside have started, and I think that's a very important program that can help, with combat redlining.
Yeah. Wow. You share a lot of information I wasn't aware of. In particular, like you said, and I was driving down First Avenue in my mind when you said it was not at a right angle to Michigan Avenue, and I can see it now exactly what you're saying. But also I wasn't aware of anything that you just said. That frightens me from being a person that quote unquote lives on the south side of Ypsilanti and not too far from First Avenue. And the second thing that frightens me is that by you running for judge, then who's not going to advocate for those people? You get what I'm saying? So you get what I mean? But that is something that ear to the ground responsibility is to get this information out to the community and particularly to those homeowners on that street.
Mm-hmm.
How could we assist you in getting this information out? Let me get this. Ear to the Ground 197 is brought to you by Tracy Sweet Touch Productions, owned by Tracy Davis, my good friend. Tracy's Sweet Touch Productions has uniquely created gifts for any occasion. YouTube, you can find her at Passionately Intrigued Arts. Instagram at Tracy Sweet Touch Production. TikTok at Estella Fabulous. Pinterest, Miss Tracy E. Davis, or you can email her at dallas2dakota@gmail.com. And then finally at Tracy E. Davis. When you come on here to the Ground 197, Tracy Davis always makes gifts for my guests, and she's got something for you sitting in that bag. Also, Ear to the Ground 197 is brought to you by Blackstone Bookstore and Cultural Center, located in downtown Ypsilanti, right across the street from the public library. Blackstone Bookstore and Cultural Center is owned by my good friend Carlos and Andrea Franklin, as well as Kip and Athena Johnson. And finally, Ear to the Ground 197 is brought to you by Jones Cleaning Service, where his motto is "We clean it right." That's Jones Cleaning Service, owned by my good friend Emmanuel Jones. And finally, Ear to the Ground 197, we are in alignment with IFSI Can I Share? IFSI Can I Share is an organization that was started by Gail Summerhill, and I'm one of the founding members. I actually came up with the name. I like to say that I came up with the name IFSI Can I Share, and we have responsibility of getting our information out. Also, IFSI Can I Share is supported by the League of Women Voters, and the same thing. These are just organizations who try to stay nonpartisan and to put information out to the community. Mm-hmm. Now, you just shared a whole bunch of information that I believe that is very important for our community to get out. And you gave me this 2-page pamphlet over here from, it's called Homes for Generations. Mama's Wheel is Not Enough. It's 2020 annual report. And it's from Catherine McCleary, the Washtenaw County Treasurer. And I've never heard anything about this whatsoever until you presented me with this today. Mm-hmm. I know I can get a lot long-winded and sidetracked, but how can we help you to get this information out? This is very important information. Mm-hmm. How can we help you get this information out to the community, to those residents?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And hopefully the viewers would know better than I.
What I'm going to do is
it's more in
this
your
yeah.
You know, I
that's
work
right. Yeah.
for the clients and hadn't realized until more recently some of the broader social impacts that it has. I just haven't been touting what we do because we're you know, most of that work has done we do as an agent for the city, or you know, the attorney for the city, and I have that these programs, some of which are newer, but the first Ave issued that was from, you know, quite long ago.
Right.
The present council members probably are not aware,
mm-hmm.
and that's something that I will get to them, that it probably, you know, I'm happy to meet with any groups or persons that would like to know more about it from me, but I will make sure that the council members, both current and running, know about these things so that they can also let the constituents know.
Yes. Gail Summerhill's out there. She asked, can I post it? And Gail, yes, I will post this. I have a copy of it, and I'll make sure that I should have screenshotted this and sent this to you before I started, Gail, because when I seen it, I was like, wow, you know. But thank you for sharing that information. We were talking earlier, and you mentioned that term redline. Okay. And right now, persons not racially classified as white, and particularly Black people, mm-hmm. our voting rights are under attack by various means, and a whole bunch of political jockeying around and a lot of political acrobats and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not aware of these things, and let me tell you, so we're gonna have a program on this pretty soon. If y'all think that you going to continue to have the right to vote or to not be under attack, you're seriously wrong. But you were talking to me earlier about redlining, right? Mm-hmm. Share with us, how is redlining going on in this particular area, and what's going on with that? And before we do that, share with the people exactly what does the term redline mean?
So redlining is a term, whereas I would speak in the past when it was created, but where insurance companies and mortgage providers kind of circled an area in red on, the red marker on the map, and those areas they either maybe didn't insure or insured at a higher rate, and that and therefore that those properties became less desirable by way of financially, you pay more for a similar size place in one or another. I've also read studies whereas in certain areas of larger cities, than ours, that in certain areas there's much more concrete than green area, which made the whole areas warmer, which had a health effect.
Okay.
But now there are fair housing laws that have come into play to that prevent that anymore. There's a lot of legislation, particularly around real estate, and there are the Fair Housing Center that goes to try and maybe not as much on the traditional redlining from a property ownership or sales sense, but target landlords that may racially discriminate or discriminate against having children or otherwise, that go out and enforce that. But by way of today redlining, I'm aware of the efforts against it much more than I am of current trends that I haven't seen any efforts to keep that oppression on. I'm aware of the efforts that I've done and that others like Catherine McClary and Judge Outside are doing to try and combat that.
Wow. And I'm really glad that you brought this today to us, that we can take a look at that. And this is something the three of the organizations that I'm involved in, we're going to make sure that we get this information out to the community and let them know that there is a remedy available, and help us on the way. So anyway, we have with us right now, and I'm going to say this right here, I got my homeboy, Ypsilanti. I can call him that because he's from Ypsilanti. Attorney Carl Barr, and he's running for it. If you tuned in late, he's running for the judge of Washington County Court A2. We got a little bit of time. We're coming up on that time of try to keep it to an hour to respect your time and respect the viewers' time. Before we get to that, do you have anything else that you would like to share to our community? The microphone is yours. The platform is yours to share whatever you would like to.
One other thought that I have, at least in notes that I wanted to mention, is that I have also litigated to defend the human rights ordinance. Okay. So I have, not only do I believe in the ordinance, but I have defended it in court.
We're talking about the City of Ypsilanti
Human Rights Ordinance. And the city and then clerk, now city manager Francis McMullen, were sued, I think 15 years ago. It's hard to remember seeing the dial. And I was one of the attorneys along with the ACLU, to defend that ordinance. I would like to, some ideas that I have that I would like to do at the 14A2 District Court is reestablish a monthly bench bar. And that was a meeting between the judge, city attorney's office, fire department, police department, building department, EMU was there, the county prosecutor, as well as the public defender, all would come and have just a lunch. It was hosted, so it would rotate who hosted: our office, the court, EMU, the fire department, police, and each group there would share a little bit about what's going on, in their particular department. And so communication, so that everybody knew what, maybe a current issue was, from another side, helped you help them better, or vice versa. And probably the best example that I can think of by way of that communication, helping with regards to the court and the police department coordinating schedules about when things might be scheduled, so that officers didn't have to come after working, all night and then come to court in the morning. Maybe if they just switched it on different days, so they would work better, one, by way of saving overtime, and two, for saying wear and tear on officers. I believe that I've mentioned that I'm an advocate to continue the work of the specialty courts. And
what are the specialty courts?
So there's a drug treatment court.
Okay.
And there's a veterans court. I believe there's a mental health court.
Okay.
And those have some diversion programs that are very specifically targeted to through the probation and parole agents, to target some of the core reasons why. So there may be an offense, whether it's a drunk driving, whether it's whatever it is. But it's what has created that, what's behind that. And that's what really needs to be addressed in order to truly correct the problem, and and substantially reduce the risk of it happening again, which in the current vernacular is reduce recidivism.
Okay. So we're listening here to Attorney Carl Barr, running for Washtenaw County District Court A2. And I mentioned our groups, IFC Can I Share, and IFC Can I Share, as well as the League of Women Voters. So these, what we created, I was sharing with you earlier, these are called empowerment cards. And what these cards are is they will tell you who your elected officials are and where you can find them, because a lot of people don't know. Unfortunately, when they say they have Ypsilanti address, they may be living out in Pittsfield Township, Superior Township, or Pittsfield or Ypsilanti Township, and vice versa. So we created these right here. And on each one of these empowerment cards, it shows who your elected officials are. But what we did was the League of Women Voters, Jeff and Trudy Hughes, created this empowerment board from us. I'm gonna see if I can bring this down a little bit. And what this is a blow up, actually, of the cards I just showed Carl Barr right there. Okay. And what they are is if you look at them closely, you have City of Ypsilanti, Ypsilanti Township, Pittsfield Township, and Superior Township. And it shows where those municipalities are located, and who governs those, or who is the mayor, who's the township trustee, who's the city clerk, who is the ward representative, who's the trustee, who's the treasurer, who's the where you can get snow service for, and stuff like that. And so we created these through IFC Can I Share and League of Women Voters. And so you can find out where they are. Now, what I noticed on there, Attorney Carl Barr, on those cards right there, there is no place for no judges on there.
That's true.
Okay, so Jeff and Trudy and Gail, we're gonna have to put that on there and make sure that we have who our judicials, those in that area right there, and what they represent, and have their information so we can contact them also. And I can say this, and you read it how you want to, but I hope that your name is on the next one.
Well, I appreciate it.
Okay, and I say that, so y'all take that how you want it, but you heard it here first on Ear to the Ground 197. Got my homeboy here, Mr. Carl, Attorney Carl Barr. So I'm gonna go over here and get this. I usually keep everything close by. And like I said, I got this over here.
Well, I may need to step off, and I'll be right back myself.
Okay, let's see. Grabbing something, we grabbing something, moving around. Uh-oh, he got something. Okay. All right. So Tracy Davis of Tracy Sweet Touch Productions. She always makes something for our guests. And this is what Tracy has made for you. Let's take a look at that.
Well, thank you. And it's not as nice as a packaging as well we have here, but I brought something for you as well.
Look what I got. Okay. Well, I'm gonna show yours first. All right. Okay.
I love this.
Now, I forget what Tracy called that, right? But what she says is that you put that on your nightstand, and then when you know, at the end of the evening, you put your change in there, your watch, your ring, and your coins and stuff like that. And I forget what she said, but that's where she places that at. And then she even got some made you some special chapstick, and that she sells all that stuff. But that's by Tracy Sweet Touch Production, and you can find Tracy Sweet Touch Production on YouTube at Passionately Intrigued Arts, Instagram at Tracy Sweet Touch Production, TikTok at Estella Fabulous, Pinterest, Miss Tracy E. Davis, and email at dallas2dakota@gmail.com. And Facebook, Tracy E. Davis is where you can find her at. Then I'm gonna show you, see what Mr. Carl Barr has got for me. Man, this is the first time somebody brought me a gift on the show. Yeah. So I have me, Tracy. This is mine, Tracy. You didn't make this for you. So anyway, wow.
So that is
That's your attorney
firm's
firm
mug. You are the first person that I think we've ever given them out to. We use them in the office.
Okay.
But I thought you might like that.
I'm gonna love it. I might not even drink coffee out of it, but just to make sure I keep it new. So I'm gonna set this right here. Thank you, sir.
And
I got the
thank
pen
you
too.
very much for this, and thank you, Tracy, very much. This is amazing.
Yeah. And so we're gonna have Attorney Carl Barr to come back in the near future, if that's okay.
Great. I love that.
And it's open. This is open to you and to your constituencies, or some information that you need for us to get out and what have you. Even if you can't be here, if there's some information that you need us to get out. And I don't know, can you do that when you become judge? That you can share some information that needs to be put out across our airways.
Certain things, obviously, that we could, a new program, a new initiative, trends that we're seeing in the court. You know, I'm not sure whether I could comment on specific cases. I certainly can't engage in politics.
We understand, right?
Items, but I would certainly love to report back to the community.
Yes, because that's what we are. That's why it's called Ear to the Ground 197, so that we can let our community what's going on. So
and
go ahead.
And I would like, whether from you or the community, to be pointed to the best person that I can learn more about the racial and how that how the race and sentencing are being affected, and what that I could do if elected on that, because I feel not equipped right now to address that, and I would like to know more.
That is a trait that you just demonstrated that very few people don't want to say, is that I don't know. And you just said something. So you're hearing from a person, like I said, who said he doesn't know something and he's willing to know. You need to pay attention to that attribute when you are casting your votes and your ballots about people, about those characters and what have you. And here we have right here, man, just says who don't know and wants to learn. And I have to do nothing but put a high check mark on that one right there to say that he wants to know. And what we're going to do is we're going to create the space so that we can address those issues, and then you can hear what the community has to say. As I said early in the program, so many of our elected officials have gotten to the point that they don't hear what the community has to say. They feel as though they come back and tell us what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to respond, as to asking us what do we think. So I just want to say thank you for saying that right there. It means a lot to me. So
I appreciate that. I'm not sure how else to be. The more I do this job, and the more I learn about the law, the more I realize there's so much more I don't know.
Right. Wow, that's beautiful. So that brings us to the end of Ear to the Ground 197. Next week, we're going to have Ypsilanti Community Schools, Alana Zachary Ross on, the school superintendent. And then I got a real special guest coming on following her. So we'll see you next week on Ear to the Ground 197. As my song says, we believe all power to the people. And so with that, we're up out of here.